or it is formed as a result of complete transfer of electrons, a chemical bond may be further classified into two main types: ionic bond and covalent bond. Okay, so ionic bond is also referred to as electrovalent bond. Electrovalent bond. So in ionic or electrovalent bond, there is a complete transfer of electrons from one atom to another, and this type of bond is formed between a metal and a non-metal, and the metal is in position of losing one electron or two electrons, and non-metals are in position of gaining one or two electrons. And after one loses the electron, they develop a positive charge, and the other, after gaining the electron, they develop a negative charge, as a result of which we show the electrovalent bond by this symbolization. So we are not going to show in ionic bond any line in between the two atoms, because charges are developed. One forms the cation, other forms the anion, and as charges are developed, so therefore we show them with the help of charges. But in case of covalent bond, which is formed generally between the two non-metals, or a metal and a non-metal with relatively lesser difference of electronegativity, so there we are going to symbolize the covalent bond with the help of a line. Okay, with the help of a line. And in this particular case, it is further subdivided into two types. The covalent bond is further subdivided into two types. One is called polar covalent bond, and the other is called non-polar covalent bond. This also we have discussed while discussing the electronegativity topic. So when will this bond be called a polar covalent bond? It will be called a polar covalent bond if there is some difference of electronegativity less than 1.7, as a result of which there is a partial negative and partial positive charge developed. But if the difference of electronegativity is 0, which means that both atoms have either exactly same electronegativity, or even if some difference is there, it is negligibly small. So in this case, nobody is going to develop any charge on them, and hence they are referred to as non-polar covalent bond. So today we will mainly focus on the first type of bond, which is referred to as the ionic bond or electrovalent bond, which is formed as a result of electrostatic force of attraction between two oppositely charged ions, one of which is positively charged and the other is negatively charged. And obviously, both positively and negatively charged ions are produced from atoms only by losing the electron and by gaining the electron. Have you written down up to this much the flow chart? Can I proceed further?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So write down the first topic for today, that is ionic or electrovalent bond. So as we have already discussed that in order to form such kind of bond, it is mandatory that One of the atoms should be highly electronegative and should be capacious of gaining electron, and the other atom should be highly electropositive and should be capacious of donating electrons, because then only we can expect the development of positive and negative charges on them. The bond formed as a result of electrostatic attraction between two oppositely charged ions is termed as electrovalent or ionic bond. It is formed by complete transfer of electrons from one atom to another. So why is this complete transfer of electron is going on? So that both of them are capable of completing their octet. So in general, we use the term octet for those who can accommodate 8 electrons. But there are atoms like hydrogen, lithium, which are not capacious enough to accommodate 8 electrons. So rather they will try to complete their duplet. So mostly they try to complete their octet, and very few like hydrogen, helium, they are interested in completing their duplet. Duplet means 2 electrons. It is formed between a metal and a non-metal so that they are converted into a cation and anion respectively. So I'm using the term respectively because the metals are converted to cations and non-metals are converted to anions. The amount of charge, the amount or unit of charge present on the ions is called its electrovalence. So during the formation of the ionic bond, whatever charges are acquired by the cation or anion will be called as electrovalence of that ion. Suppose sodium. Sodium has one electron in its outermost shell. So in order to acquire 2,8 configuration, sodium is going to lose one electron and will develop +1 charge. And we will say that the electrovalence of sodium is +1. Similarly, the electrovalence of chlorine will be -1 because the chlorine will be accepting the electron. So there is a representation which is given by Lewis, a scientist called Lewis, which is called Lewis dot structure, where only the outermost shell electrons are denoted by dots. Okay, so every electron is denoted by a dot, and accordingly, we can say that if I'm interested to show the Lewis dot structure of sodium, I'll show it with the help of a single dot. Even though sodium has total of 11 electrons, but according to this concept, the inner electrons do not take part in bond formation. So only the outer shell electron is taking part in bond formation. So in Lewis dot structure, we generally show only the outermost shell electron. Same way, chlorine is 2,8, 7. So we are going to show 7 electrons. Now, sodium will completely transfer its outermost shell electron to chlorine. And by doing so, sodium will develop a positive charge, and chlorine, after accepting one electron, will develop a negative charge. And accordingly, we can say that previously sodium was 2,8, 1. Chlorine was 2,8, 7. But after the bond is formed, sodium is 2,8 and chlorine is 2,8, 8. See whether you have understood this or not. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So it's not very confusing because it's as simple as saying that one is donating the electron, other is accepting the electron. The one which donates the electron will develop positive charge, and the other who will be accepting the electron will develop negative charge, and accordingly the bond will be formed, and whatever charges are acquired by the combining atoms, that will be referred to as the electrovalence of that particular atom. So likewise, potassium can combine with chlorine or fluorine. Now it has been generally found that this type of bond is formed between group 1 and group 17, or group 1 and group 16, or group 2 and group 17, or group 2 and group 16. That means the two extreme groups 1 and 2 from the left hand side, which are said to be more metallic, and the two extreme rights, except for the noble gases. Forget about the noble gases because noble gases are not interested to show any kind of bond formation. So prior to the noble gases, the two groups, group 16 and 17, have maximum tendency of accepting the electrons. So therefore, the combinations 117 or 116 or 217 or 216. So these are the maximum possible elements which are capable of showing the or forming the ionic. Okay. Now the question arises that what is the reason that in order to form an ionic bond, one of the elements must be a metal and other must be non-metal? Why it cannot be formed between two metals or two non-metals? That is another important question that is asked. So in order to understand it, we shall discuss the next important topic under ionic bond only, and that you must understand completely. Factors affecting ionic bond. Okay, so once we are clear about what are the factors affecting the ionic bond, then I don't think there should be confusion that why the combination should always be between metal and a non-metal. The first factor which affects the formation of ionic bond is ionization enthalpy. We have already discussed what exactly is ionization enthalpy in the last chapter. We have seen that for removal of electron from every element, we need to supply a minimum amount of energy, and that minimum amount of energy that needs to be supplied so as to remove the most loosely bound electron from an isolated gaseous atom is referred to as ionization enthalpy. Lower the ionization energy required, more easily is the cation produced. Higher the ionization energy required, with difficulty the cation will be formed. But cations are very much required for ionic bond formation, because until unless the cations are produced or anions are produced, you cannot expect the ionic bond formation. And therefore, if we are asked that should the ionization energy required to remove the electron from the metal be high or low, so obviously the answer should be more easily the cation is produced, better it is for formation of ionic bond. And that is why we can say that ionization energy should be low, because the two participants in ionic bond formation are metals and non-metals. So lesser the ionization energy required to remove the electron, we say that more metallic is the character. And more metallic is the character, higher will be the possibility of formation of the ionic bond. And that is why we say that the favorable condition required in terms of ionization enthalpy is the ionization energy should be low, because atoms with high ionization enthalpy cannot be good metals, and if they are not good metals, they cannot be the constituent of ionic bond. So write down ionization energy is the minimum amount of energy required to remove the outermost shell electron or loosely bound electron from an isolated gaseous atom. Lesser the ionization energy required to remove the electron of a metal atom greater is the possibility of formation of cation. Okay, so lesser the amount of energy required to remove the electron, more easily will be the cation formed, and more easily the cation is formed. So we can say more is the possibility of formation of an ionic. Okay, I hope this point is clear. Yes, sir. Anyone having any
Yes, sir.
doubt? So there should not be any confusion that when we talk about the removal of electron, so process should be easier from the metallic part, because if the process is difficult, then obviously the formation of carbocation, I mean formation of cation will be difficult, and if the formation of cation is difficult, the whole process will be hampered. Can I rub it? Have you written it down?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now let us go to the other point. We have discussed about formation of cation. So just like the formation of cation is very important, similarly, the formation of anion is equally important. Formation of anion is equally important. And anion formation is associated with electron gain enthalpy. Just a minute. I have a important call to attend. I'm coming. So what is electron gain enthalpy? It is the amount of energy change taking place when an electron is added up to the outermost shell of an isolated gaseous atom, isn't it? Do you remember the definition? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So greater the amount of energy released during the process, more negative is the electron gain enthalpy, and that is favorable for the non-metals. So hence we can say that it is the amount of energy change taking place when an electron is added up to the outermost shell of an isolated gaseous atom. Okay. So some atoms are very eagerly accepting the electron, and in return they release great amount of energy, and they will be called as more non-metallic in nature. That means the non-metals have the tendency of accepting the electron, and after accepting the electron, in return they release great amount of energy. So same way we say that more the energy released after accepting the electron, more stable is the anion produced. Okay, so greater the amount of energy that is released, more stable will be the anion produced, and therefore we can say that favorable condition number two, number one was low ionization enthalpy as far as the metal was concerned, and favorable condition number two is more negative electron gain enthalpy, or more amount of energy released when electron is added up. And because you see that if you want to form an ionic compound, you must have a stable cation and stable anion. And stable cation is produced if ionization energy required is less. Stable anion is produced when energy released during the formation of anion is more. So whenever you are accepting something, it should be accepted in smaller amount. And whenever you are losing something, it should be lost in larger amount, so that the system is left with lesser amount of energy. Then only the system can be called as more stable. So if the cations and anions produced are stable, then only you can expect the formation of a stable ionic bond. If during the formation of cation and anion there are problems coming, you cannot expect the formation of a stable ionic compound. And that is why we say that more the energy released after accepting the electron, more stable is the anion produced, and more stable will be the ionic compound. It means that if an atom X accepts electron to produce X minus, then during this process, delta EGH must be negative. And not only negative, it should be high negative. Because more negative it is, more stable will be the anion. And more stable the anion, you can expect a better ionic compound produced. Is this much clear?
Yes, sir.
So in our religion, or generally in the moral studies that we go through from our childhood days, we are always given this type of you can say knowledge from our elders, that we should not be greedy, because the greed makes a person less stable. And that is why the more you can give to others, you will be more stable personality. Now, how can I correlate this? I can say that when you are accepting energy for removing the electron, you should accept lesser amount of energy. And when you are losing energy after accepting the electron, you should release greater amount of energy. So while accepting, release lesser amount of energy. While releasing, release greater amount of energy. Then only the system ultimately formed will be more stable. Understood?
Yes, sir.
So in step 1, what was formed? Cation or anion?
Cation.
Cation was formed. And the formation of cation should require great amount of energy or less amount of energy?
Less.
Less
Yes,
amount of
sir.
energy. Okay. In step 2, what has been formed?
Anion.
Anion.
Anion is formed. So during the formation of anion, energy release should be high or low?
High.
Energy release should be
High.
high. So the two favorable conditions for the formation of ionic bond are: number 1, low ionization energy, and high electron gain enthalpy, high negative electron gain enthalpy. Because when we specify negative electron gain enthalpy, it means energy is released. So here negative and positive means energy is released, energy is absorbed. So both of our constituents required for the ionic bond formation are ready. Now they will approach near each other, and when they approach near each other, so there will be electrostatic forces of attraction between them. And always remember, whenever there is some kind of attraction, in return, there will be always some energy released. Okay. So this is a simple rule which says that force of attraction, whenever there is force of attraction, there is a release of energy. And greater the release of energy, more stable is the system. But if you reverse the process, there is force of repulsion, which is equivalent to hatred, jealousy in our society. So that will absorb energy. That will make the people highly energetic, because those who always keep on fighting, they are full of energy. But when you have full of energy and there is always a hatred, jealousy in you, it makes ultimately unstable. So these are the simple rules that needs to be taken care of, that whenever there is combination, there is attraction, there will be release of energy, and the system will be left with less amount of energy, and system will be more stable. But when there is force of repulsion, which exists between like charges, plus and plus or minus and minus, they never combine with each other, because if somehow you force them to combine with each other, they will repel each other. And wherever there is force of repulsion, there will be increase of energy. And wherever there is increase of energy, the system will become unstable. So our cation is ready, our anion is ready. What kind of force they will show in between? Will it be force of attraction or will it be force of repulsion?
Attraction.
The force of attraction. So if they show force of attraction, will they release energy or will they absorb energy?
Release energy.
Release
Sir,
energy.
release
They
energy.
will release energy, and that amount of energy release is called lattice energy. So this is the third important step. In the first step, we had produced the cation. In the second step, we had the anion produced, and now the cation will attract the anion, by electrostatic forces of attraction, which is referred to as the lattice energy. It is defined as the amount of energy released when 1 mole of an ionic compound is produced from required number of oppositely charged ions. So the cation that we had produced in the first step, denoted as A plus in the gaseous state, combines with the anion in the second step, and they will combine with each other through electrostatic forces of attraction, and the ionic compound produced will be in solid state. All ionic compounds are solids without any exception, and during this combination there is energy released. Whenever I write any energy term on the right hand side, it is energy released, and whenever we write it on the left hand side, it is the energy absorbed. More the lattice energy released. So if greater amount of energy is released, the system A plus B minus will be left with lesser amount of energy. And if it is left with lesser amount of energy, so it will be more stable. Lesser is the energy possessed by the ionic compound A plus B minus, and more stable will be the compound. Okay. So in the three steps, starting from absorption of energy for removal of electron so that cation is produced, release of energy during formation of an ion, and release of energy during formation of ionic compounds. So out of the 3 steps, the first step involves absorption of energy, second and third involves release of energy. And if it is asked that as a whole, what are the favorable conditions for formation of ionic compound, we can say that the favorable conditions are low ionization energy, high negative electron gain enthalpy, and high lattice energy, because the second two are energy is released. So when you are releasing energy, it should be given in higher amount, given out in higher amount. And when you are absorbing energy, it should be absorbed in lesser amount. And that is why we say that favorable conditions for formation of ionic compound are number 1, low ionization enthalpy, number 2, high negative delta EGH, and number 3, high lattice energy. See, up to this much, are the things clear to everyone? Anybody having any doubt, please clear it out. Yes.
Sir, can you explain the second point?
Second point,
Yes.
electron gain enthalpy.
Sir, high negative electron.
High negative electron gain enthalpy. Okay, fine. See, the second participant which takes part in the ionic bond formation is a non-metal, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Non-metals have the tendency of gaining electrons, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So more easily a non-metal gains electron, in return it is supposed to lose greater amount of energy or not?
Yes, sir.
So greater the amount of energy released, more negative will be the delta EGH. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So hence we can say that the first participant should be having low ionization enthalpy, which means that it should be more metallic. And where do you get the more metallic characteristic elements in the whole periodic table? You get it in period one, group 1 and group 2 or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. The second important point is the second participant should be more non-metallic, who can release greater amount of energy after accepting the electron. Where will you get such kind of non-metals in the whole periodic table? Is it not group 17 and group 16? Halogens,
Yes.
which are short of 1 electron, and chalcogens, which are short of 2 electrons. So they eagerly take the electrons. And that is why we say that criteria number 1 is well satisfied by group 1 and group 2. Group 1 maximum, group 2 to the next extent. Criteria number 2 is well satisfied by group 17 and group 16. Group 17 more, group 16 a bit lesser. And that is why the ionic compounds are formed by the combination of group 1 and 17 or 16, group 2 or 17 and 16. Clear?
Yes, sir. So can you
No.
explain the definition of lattice energy once again?
Okay. So whenever 1 mole of ionic compound is produced, not one ionic compound is produced. 1 mole means what? 1 mole means 6.022 into 10 to the power 23. Okay, units of ionic compound is produced from its required number of ions. Now, if we are talking about ionic compound like NaCl, so how many Na plus ions will be required to produce Avogadro's number of NaCl? Of course, Avogadro's number. And how many Cl minus will be required? Avogadro's number of Cl minus. So when Avogadro's number of Na plus combines with Avogadro's number of you can say anions, so in return whatever energy is released when 1 mole or Avogadro's number of units of ionic compound is produced, so we call this energy released as lattice energy. Clear?
Okay, sir.
But at the same time, if you are preparing an ionic compound like CaCl2, okay, so what is the formula according to CaCl2? Each ion of calcium, Ca2 plus, is combining with how many Cl minus ions? 2 or not?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So if you are interested to produce Avogadro's number of CaCl2, how many calcium ions will be required? Will it not be Avogadro's number? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
And how many Cl minus will be required? Will it be Avogadro's number or twice the Avogadro's number?
Sir,
Twice
twice
the-
the Avogadro's number.
Twice the Avogadro's number. So ions may be different in number, but we are not interested in how many ions are combining. What we are interested in is whether 1 mole of ionic compound is produced or not. And that is why I have used the term 1 mole of an ionic compound is produced from a required number of oppositely charged ions. Understood?
Yes, sir.
So this ionic compound produced should be 1 mole. And during this production of 1 mole of ionic compound, whatever energy is released, it is referred to as lattice energy. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So remember the 3 favorable conditions for formation of ionic compound: low ionization energy, high negative electron gain enthalpy, and high lattice energy. Now, let us try to understand the lattice energy in a much more broader way. We have defined what is lattice energy, but now let us talk about what are the factors affecting lattice energy. So this must be taken care of, that what are the factors affecting the lattice energy. The magnitude of lattice energy release should be high, I have already told you. And what factors actually determine the magnitude of lattice energy? The first important factor that decides the magnitude of lattice energy is charge on the ions. Charge on the ions. If the charge on the ions, combining ions, is more, greater will be the force of attraction. And greater the force of attraction, greater will be the amount of energy released. So we can write higher the charge on the combining ions, more will be the lattice energy released. Say we have got sodium chloride. You know that the charge on sodium is +1, chlorine is -1. We have calcium chloride. Calcium is +2, each chlorine is -1. And MgO, magnesium, is +2, this is -2. So where do you think the magnitude of the charge is highest out of the 3?
MgO.
MgO. So therefore, lattice energy released will be highest in magnesium oxide, followed by calcium chloride, followed by sodium chloride. Clear?
Yes.
The second factor on which the lattice energy depends upon is size of the ions. If the size of the ion is relatively smaller, especially when we talk about the cations, so they will have greater force of attraction due to greater nuclear charge. And therefore, as the size of the cation keeps on increasing, its effective nuclear charge keeps on decreasing. And that is why it has been found out that smaller the size, higher is the force of attraction. And higher the force of attraction, greater will be the lattice energy released. On the contrary, we can say greater is the size of ions, higher is the internuclear distance, and lesser will be force of attraction, leading to less lattice energy released. Leading to less lattice energy release. So as the size of the ion increases, obviously the distance between the oppositely charged ions as far as their nucleus is concerned will be more. And if the distance is more, the force of attraction will be less. And if the force of attraction is less, so automatically the lattice energy will be less. So suppose we have NaCl and NaBr. So no doubt, both of them are plus minus, plus minus. But where do you think is the difference? This is smaller size, this is larger size. Bromide Br minus is slightly larger with respect to Cl minus. So who do you think will release greater amount of lattice energy when they interact?
NaCl.
Of course, NaCl. And that is why we can say that NaCl releases greater lattice energy. Understood?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So these are the favorable factors which are very much important for us to understand to form the ionic compound. Eta ionic compound form koribole jodi amak koy favorable conditions keta ki ami ko that is low ionization energy, high negative electron gain enthalpy, and high lattice energy. Because whenever energy is released during the process, it should be released in greater amount. And whenever energy is absorbed during any process, so it should be absorbed in lesser amount so that the system is left with less amount of energy. So these are the factors which affect the formation of an ionic bond. Then after the ionic compound is produced by utilization of these three important points, we now talk about the properties of ionic compounds. What are the properties of ionic compounds? Let us see. At first, let us talk about the physical state. Whether the ionic compounds will exist in solid, liquid, or gaseous state. I told you during the discussion today itself that all ionic compounds are crystalline solids. Okay, so they are crystalline solids and they are very stable. And not only are they stable, they are very disciplined. Now, when I use the term disciplined, what does that mean? It means that they have a regular arrangement of oppositely charged ions, which looks symmetrical. Now, when you are very much disciplined in your life, okay, you are symmetrical in your life. You take your food every day at same time. You go to sleep at same time. You get up at same time. You will see that your body will be stable. So exactly in the similar way, when an ionic compound is produced, they have a regular geometry. The oppositely charged ions arrange themselves in three-dimensional geometry, giving them a very, very stable state. So no ionic compound is existing in the liquid state. All ionic compounds are solids. So write down these compounds exist as crystalline solids. Like sodium chloride is an ionic compound. which consists of orderly three-dimensional arrangement arrangements of cations and anions. You can further continue, which are held together by strong electrostatic forces of attraction. You'll observe in defense people who work in Indian Army or Air Force or Navy, they lead a very disciplined life. They have everything, they do everything in proper timing. And that is why they have a very stable personality. They are physically fit and they do not get altered or hampered by small things. Why? Because when you are physically fit, you are mentally fit and you are capable of undergoing any kind of problems in your life. So exactly in the similar way, the ionic compounds are very strong within because they are held together by strong electrostatic forces of attraction, and the cations and anions arrange themselves symmetrically, orderly in all the directions, which make them very, very stable in nature. And if you want to break them, you need to supply a very huge amount of energy, and which makes their melting and boiling points exceptionally very high. And that is what we are going to discuss under point 2. Melting and boiling points. See, melting point means it is the temperature which is required to melt a solid substance. You want to convert solid to liquid. And boiling point is you want to convert further the liquid to vapor. That means you are wanting to make the intermolecular attractions weaker, interionic attractions weaker. And for that, you are supplying energy. Now, if the bonding is very strong, so you need to supply very high amount of energy. And that is why the melting and boiling point will be very, very high. In ionic compounds, as the ions, as the oppositely charged ions are held together by strong electrostatic forces, hence a huge amount of energy is required to break the crystal. Here I am using the term crystal lattice. Crystal lattice means the three-dimensional geometry which they have acquired after combining with each other. So because it's a very solid and very stable format, and if you want to deter it, it's like saying that if you want to destroy a very strong building, so obviously you need to apply a huge amount of energy. So the ionic compounds are very strongly built, okay, strongly built, and that is why you need to supply a huge amount of energy to depart them. Hence, they have high melting and boiling point. I hope it is clear.
Yes, sir.
Point number 3 is interesting. What you cannot break with applying a huge amount of energy can be easily broken by dissolving them in water. And that is what we are going to discuss under solubility. Okay, so before you write down, you must understand, because this particular point is very, very important for us. And in many of the next coming chapters, especially in inorganic chemistry, you will get this. So suppose we have an ionic compound like sodium chloride, and the Na plus and Cl minus are strongly bonded through strong electrostatic forces of attraction. Nobody can deter it, and even if you want to break them apart, you need to supply a huge amount of energy. Now what do I do is, when I dissolve sodium chloride in water, let us see what is the water molecule. Water molecule is a polar covalent molecule with partial positive charge on hydrogen and partial negative charge on OH. So the moment the sodium chloride is dissolved in water, the water molecules will surround the sodium chloride from all the different directions. Okay. And the water molecules will orient themselves in such a way that the del minus part of water will be facing the Na plus, and the del plus part of water will be facing the Cl minus. Is it understood what I am saying?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So water has two poles. It is a dipole. It has a positive charge on it as well as a negative charge on it. So when they surround the NaCl from all the directions, the Cl minus start interacting with the positive part of water, and Na plus start interacting with the negative part of water. And during this interaction, some amount of energy is released. I told you that whenever there is interaction, in return there is amount of energy released, and this amount of energy released is called hydration enthalpy. Hydration enthalpy. So when water interacts with the ionic compound, the amount of energy released is called hydration enthalpy. If this hydration enthalpy is high enough as compared to the lattice energy, because minimum of lattice energy must be supplied so as to depart them, because by spending this much energy they were formed. It is just like saying that suppose you buy something today and you don't require that, you want to sell it off. So minimum of the cost price you would like to retain, and tatke besi hole bhal kotha, you get the profit, but minimum whatever costing was there, you want to sell it off with that price. So sodium chloride is produced by spending lattice energy. During its formation, remember that lattice energy was released. If you want to break it again to its constituent ions, you have to supply minimum of that amount of energy. If anybody can supply that amount of energy, the sodium chloride will break down to give Na plus and Cl minus. Now NaCl interacts with water, and during this interaction, hydration energy is released, hydration enthalpy is released. If this hydration enthalpy is greater than that of lattice energy required to break them, then it will break down into ions, otherwise it will not. But it's a well-known fact that ionic compounds like sodium chloride very well dissolves in water. And when I say that sodium chloride is dissolving in water, to give us a clear solution, it means that it has been ionized, it has been broken down into ions. And who is capable of breaking down into ions? The water molecules. The water molecules produce some kind of obstruction in between the Na plus and Cl minus by individually interacting with Na plus and Cl minus. It is like saying that you have great friendship in your school days, and sometimes with full of emotions, you say that you are not going to break the friendship no matter whatever comes in our life. But slowly when you grow up, you become so busy with your career making phenomenon that slowly you will see that you come in less contact with the friends, and slowly the friendship gets more weakened. And obviously in the same way, the Na plus and Cl minus, when they formed the bond, they promised each other that they are not going to depart because the bonding is very strong. But the moment they get into water, the water molecules easily dissolve them by supplying sufficient amount of energy, whatever is required to depart them. And that is why we say that almost all ionic compounds are soluble in water, because the hydration energy released exceeds the lattice energy, which makes or which breaks the ionic compound to the respective ions. I hope it is clear now why ionic compounds are mostly soluble in water.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay, so who is responsible for breaking the ionic compound so easily without increasing any temperature or supplying any amount of heat?
Hydration and
Water.
It is water, because it is the water that interacts with the ionic compounds, releasing sufficient amount of energy to depart them. So write down under solubility, most of the ionic compounds are highly soluble in water, as the hydration enthalpy released exceeds the lattice enthalpy. Don't get confused with the terms enthalpy. Enthalpy is nothing but sophisticated term for energy itself. As a result, in water, the ionic compounds ionize to produce the constituent ions and is said to be soluble. Do you see the sodium chloride when dissolved in water with your naked eyes? Can you see the sodium chloride once it gets dissolved?
No, sir.
No,
No, sir.
because it is converted into ions and we cannot see the ions. But if you want to get back the sodium chloride, what do we do? Can we do the evaporation? Yes?
yes,
Okay. So when you evaporate the water and no more water is present, the whole of water goes out, you get back the sodium chloride or not?
Yes, sir.
yes,
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if there is no water to break them, every water is removed out. So obviously you get back the sodium chloride. But as long as water was there, so it could divide and rule the sodium chloride. And water is one such solvent which has a very high dielectric constant. You will get the term in physics, but for the time being, simply remember that water has a high power of dividing and ruling, just like the British people used to do with us. Water, in a similar way, can apply this divide and rule policy to every ionic compound. So here you can write the definition of hydration enthalpy. Lattice enthalpy we have already discussed. Hydration enthalpy, it is the amount of energy released when 1 mole of an ionic compound interacts with excess amount of water. The water has to be in excess so that it can surround the sodium chloride from all sides. But amount of sodium chloride taken should be 1 mole, and lattice energy was also calculated for 1 mole. So therefore, ionic compounds are highly soluble in polar solvents like water. But if you talk about non-polar solvents like petrol, diesel, benzene, so ionic compounds are insoluble because those solvents do not have any charge with the help of which they can interact with the ionic compounds. So if it is asked that to be soluble in water, what should be the criteria for an ionic compound? The answer is the hydration enthalpy must exceed the lattice enthalpy. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Shall we go to the next one?
Sir, what is lanthanide contraction?
Suddenly, why you are asking lanthanide contraction, beta? You will get it in class 12, not required in 11. When you come across lanthanoids and actinoids, you will get what is lanthanoid contraction. Okay. Number 4, electrical conductivity. So what can you say about electrical conductivity, about ionic compounds? Are they good conductors of electricity or bad conductors of electricity? What do you think?
Conductors.
Conductors.
Good conductors?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So write down ionic compounds do not conduct electricity in solid state. Okay. So tell me, are they good conductors or bad conductors? What have I written?
Bad conductors.
Bad conductors. However, in molten state, when they are melted, or aqueous solution, what will happen? Will not they break down into ions? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So this is very, very important. If you are asked this question that do ionic compounds conduct electricity? The answer will be It depends whether they are in the solid state or whether they are in molten form. That means they are melted, or whether they are in the aqueous solution. I have already told you that when you supply them sufficient amount of energy, they break down into ions. Or if you don't want to provide them energy, still you want to break them off, so they have to be dissolved in water. The moment they are dissolved in water, the electrostatic forces of attraction between them decreases, and the ions are free from each other and they can move freely. See, only having ions is not sufficient criteria to conduct electricity. The ions must be free to move. If you have talent, but you don't have the scope to show it, nobody will say you are talented. But if you get a proper scope, you are getting a free environment to show your talent. So obviously you will be called as talented. So ionic compounds have ions in them, but they are restricted in the solid state as they are bonded to each other through strong electrostatic forces of attraction. But the moment they are in molten form, or the moment they are getting dissolved in water, the ions are now free to move. And that is why we can say that they become very good conductors in aqueous solution or molten form. But in case of solid state, they do not conduct electricity. Understood? Is it clear?
Yes.
So remember this. Okay. Can we move on to the next one?
Yes.
The last one is ionic reactions. Suppose I take sodium chloride in aqueous solution, silver nitrate in aqueous solution. The moment you mix this up with this, immediately within a fraction of a second, you will get precipitate of AgCl. Which means that ionic reactions are very, very fast and you hardly get any time to study them. Immediately when you mix them up, they form the products then and there. So what is the reason behind it? The reason is, if you look at these two, they are in aqueous solution. That means, are they present as ionic compound or are they present as ions?
Ions.
They are
Sir,
present
ions.
as ions. So I am supposed to write Na plus aqueous, Cl minus aqueous, Ag plus aqueous, NO3 minus aqueous, isn't it? This is
Yes,
the
sir.
actual form they are existing, because the moment they are dissolved in water, they do not exist as ionic compound, rather they get dissociated. The moment the two are mixed up, they immediately combine with oppositely charged ions. Ag plus will combine with Cl minus, producing white precipitate of AgCl, and Na plus will combine with NO3 minus. And that is why we say that ionic reactions are very, very fast, because they split up into oppositely charged ions when dissolved in water. And therefore, the chemical reactions of these compounds are very, very fast. Is it clear?
Yes, sir. Clear.
But relatively covalent reactions are slower. Why they are slower? Because first you need to break them. They are not in the broken form as we are getting here. So time is required to break them, and thereafter they combine with each other. And that is why we say, as ionic compounds, you have to write this under this point. As ionic compounds split up into ions, when dissolved in water, the chemical reactions are very fast as oppositely charged ions quickly combine to form the products. Okay, so this is the example I have given at first. So main thing that you need to understand is they are already present as ions. You don't require to produce them as they are in aqueous solution. They are already split up into ions when dissolved in water, and therefore they simply combine with oppositely charged ions to form the products. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I hope the chemistry of ionic compound is clear to each and everyone.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Take us.
Yes, sir.
So after completion of ionic compounds, we'll discuss the next topic as covalent compounds, and covalent bonding requires more type of you can say principles, theories and rules under them. So that we'll discuss. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.